All right, and boom, ladies and gentlemen, what is up, everyone? It's me, J-Rod, the filmmaker, former film major, frequent fighting gamer from Philadelphia, and we are once again back with another episode of one of my favorite shows on this channel, First and Final. And if this is your first ever episode of First and Final, I hope it's not your final one. But basically, the concept, the point of the show is that it's a two-part video. First, I'm going to take my first reaction to a show, movie, or other, and I'm going to put that together with my final thoughts, a final review of that same show or movie or other, and put those things together, and you'll get my full opinion on how I felt about it in the beginning versus how I feel about it after seeing the whole thing. We'll see if my opinions have changed. We'll see if I had a positive opinion in the beginning and I can maintain that by the end, or whatever happens across the course of time. Because a long time ago in a galaxy far away, I recorded my reaction to the first ever trailer for Andor Season 2. Andor is one of the most critically acclaimed Star Wars series ever since the franchise originally came out with the original trilogy of movies. There are some hits and misses. Me personally, I think maybe I'm just a bigger Star Wars nerd than everyone else, because every time we get something new for Star Wars, I enjoy it. I liked Book of Boba. I like The Mandalorian. I love The Acolyte. I like the Obi-Wan series. And Skeleton Crew came out earlier this year, or maybe the end of last year. I think I watched it earlier this year. But Skeleton Crew was really good. It was like a pirate treasure island, but in space. Okay, well, they did that with Treasure Planet, but it was like a Star Wars version of Treasure Planet. And Andor Season 1 and Rogue One are no exception. I really enjoyed those. But I also noticed watching Andor Season 1 that the quality, the level of care and detail, attention paid with that series is far above anything else that they had ever done in the Star Wars universe since that original trilogy. I think when the first season came out, The Mandalorian also is really like critically acclaimed, but I think that it is pretty obvious at this point that Andor is the best Star Wars series that they've ever done on Disney Plus. And that was with Season 1. So I'm going to get into my full thoughts on how I felt about Season 2. But we're going to start off with my trailer reaction to the first ever trailer for Andor Season 2. Then I'm going to get into it with my thoughts on it, spoiler free. Then I'm going to talk about my spoiler filled thoughts a little bit on each episode. And then that's going to make up the entire video. So first, before we get into anything, I'm going to toss it to myself. Back in the past, at some point when they dropped the first ever trailer for Andor Season 2, an exclusive first look at my first reaction of the Andor Season 2 trailer. But I'm not going to do any intro because I'll record all that later. So let's just get into it. All right, boom, let's do it.
We're in a war. You want to fight?
They are in a war.
Or you want to win?
Ooh. Okay, they're actually fighting in this, like, for real. Hey, our boy. Oh, we also got, that Grand Moff Tarkin.
The revolution starts now.
What a swell party this is.
This looks very upbeat, very energetic, action-packed. Oh, K2SO, or a security droid that looks like K2SO. Oh, that guy.
Remember this moment.
Saw Gerrera, that's
You're here,
Forrest
you're right
Whitaker's
here,
name.
and you're ready to fight.
Hey, yo. So first thing, I'm hyped that this is coming in April because there's a lot of things coming in April. April is going to be a really packed month of there's video games coming in April, there's movies coming in April, there's this show, and maybe another show. Oh, there's also the other show is The Last of Us Part 2. So The Last of Us Part 2 PC release is coming out in April, and then the season 2 of the show is also coming out in April. So yeah, it's gonna be a really packed month for real. Bro, I called her Grand Moff Target. I'm thinking someone else, but it looks really good. I'm surprised that this was so action packed for a trailer because season 1 was really good, but it wasn't constant action. Like, I feel like there was more action in this one trailer than there was in most of season 1. Season 1 was like a slow burn, slow build, but it was definitely very worth it. I feel like season 1 was inciting the revolution. Season 2 looks like it is the revolution, and that has me very excited. Star Wars properties are always hit or miss, but Andor was definitely 100% a hit. And I'm expecting no less for season 2. To be honest, I might want to do a rewatch of season 1 and maybe a rewatch of Rogue One as well, just to get familiar with where, season 1 is before this, Rogue One is right after this. So I kind of want to get an idea of where we are specifically in this. But I feel like it'll fill us in on anything. We're going to be right in the middle of a revolution that kind of takes place early. What's this war called? Is this the Galactic Civil War? I think this one's, there was the Clone Wars. This is the Galactic Civil War, is what they called it in like Star Wars Battlefront 2 Classic. So this is early Galactic Civil War, pre Death Star blowing up. You guys get a shot of them putting the Death Star together. I like that. It looks good. It looks really good. I didn't expect it to not look good because the first season was good, but I think here's the thing, I talk about it a lot that might come into play with Andor season 2. I don't want it to, but I always talk about expectations. When season 1 came out, expectations for Star Wars shows was pretty low. The only Star Wars show that people like universally loved was The Mandalorian. It's The Mandalorian and it's Andor. Those are the only ones. The other ones are always like, some people like them, some people don't. I personally love a lot of the Star Wars shows. I thought The Acolyte was one of their best ones. Next to Andor, like, I think The Acolyte is just as good as The Mandalorian in my opinion. Andor kind of stands above both of them because it just has such a serious tone, and it really does character writing and all that very well within that serious tone. So the one thing I wanted to say is that when the season 2 comes out, the expectations for Andor are going to be a lot higher than they were when season 1 came out, so hopefully it can live up to those expectations. I think it will. I'm still going to be excited for it either way, but there is a possibility that it doesn't. If you look at other things like, I think Borderlands is a good example. When the video games, not the movie. When Borderlands 2 came out, expectations were low, and Borderlands 2 exceeded those expectations, and people love it to this day. It's one of the most beloved Borderlands games. When 3 came out, the expectations are set high from 2, and 3 is a good game. I just replayed it last year. I'm playing the DLCs right now. 3 is actually a really good game. It just doesn't quite live up to where the expectations were, so people don't review it like it's a good game. They say it sucks, it's bad, and that's not true at all. There were some things about it that could have been better, but gameplay wise, like mechanically, Borderlands 3 is probably the best game. It just fell a little flat on the story. I hope that the expectations aren't too high for Andor season 2, that they can't be lived up to, but I am actually confident that it will. This was a really good looking trailer. It's full of action, it's explosive, so I'm just expecting for Andor season 2 to actually live up to it. But I actually won't get to see if it lives up to the hype until April, and that's when you guys will be seeing this reaction, unless you're watching it live. But I'm going to upload my first and final video, so the next time you guys see me, it'll be in the future, some point in May of 2025. Fingers crossed that the world still exists and it didn't blow up or anything, like the Death Star did. But assuming that the world is still there and everything still works, the next time you see me will be in the future when I can review the final thoughts, give you guys my final opinions on Andor season 2. Very excited for it, but we shall see. So yeah, pass it off to myself in the future. I'm going to get inside the spaceship and go to a different planet where time is dilated a bit differently. So by the time I come back, the amount of time should have passed, and Andor season 2 should be out in its entirety on Disney+. Alright, now that you guys have seen my first reaction and I have, gone through cryostasis in some carbonite I just thawed out a little while ago, it is officially May 21st when I'm recording this final review. I just finished the series. It ended last week. Actually, I have the dates here. It ended on May 13th. But I was watching it with my dad, so I decided to wait for him to watch the final. I think we had 2 more episodes left. And I was like, I will wait for him to watch the final 2 episodes instead of just watching it on my own, because I had some time before I made this review. I was going to consider doing this video last week, but then we were a week late with my reaction to the Met Gala red carpet. I recorded that with my mom. We recorded that on her birthday. So check out that video, fashion reaction for the Met Gala 2025, if you have not already. But the schedule just worked out so well that I had some time to really sit with Andor, to watch the full show, to take in all my thoughts, and even jot down some notes, which I do have here. But I'm going to get into it with my review of Andor, starting with the spoiler-free review for anyone who might not have seen it. In my reaction, was a bit worried. You know, I talked about how the expectations are really high after Andor season 1, and that it's hard to, you know, meet those expectations when they're really high. It's easier to meet them when there are no expectations or low expectations. However, Andor season 2 did live up to the expectations set by Andor season 1, set by Rogue One. It did it. It really succeeded. It really still knocked it out of the park. High expectations and all, this was still a really, really good season of television. It had everything that you would expect, you've come to know from the series with season 1, and more, and much, much more. Really, really good character stories, just great character development, a really grounded and mature series set in the Star Wars universe. I know a lot of times, you know, Star Wars is a bit silly, whether you want it to be or not. Star Wars can be silly, and that goes to even like stuff like The Mandalorian can be silly sometimes, with Grogu doing hilarious, cute little baby things. Or if you look at something like Skeleton Crew, which Skeleton Crew was actually a really good series, but it was basically made for families. It was made for children, and it was made for like a general audience. Andor knows exactly what it wants to be. It sits perfectly within that, you know, a mature, grounded story about Star Wars that talks about the politics, but doesn't kind of drone on like the Clone Wars or like the political arcs of some of the other movies. It really knows what it wants to be. It's a really sharp story. It's a really good spy thriller. It's a really good war story. It's a really good story of rebellion and resistance. It just knows what it is, and it does it very well. And I think that it definitely kept up the momentum that season 1 brought with it, even though it's been quite some time since season 1, and it carries that momentum perfectly into Rogue One. Like the segue, the transition from season 1 of Andor into Rogue One is just done so well that I haven't done my Rogue One rewatch, but I want to so bad right now, because I want to see all of those little subtle details and subtle Easter eggs and things that were in Rogue One that are now amplified by things that they put into Andor season 2, like the fact, okay, that's actually going to be spoilers, so I'm going to hold off on that. But I think overall, my non-spoiler review of Andor season 2 is, it is great. If you've seen Andor season 1, it is just as good, if not better, than season 1. If you haven't seen season 1, I would definitely recommend you check out Rogue One, or you check out Andor season 1, Andor season 2, and Rogue One. And I'm gonna go ahead and say it, I think that this is the best Star Wars trilogy since the original one. Season 1 of Andor, Season 2 of Andor, and then Rogue One make for the perfect Star Wars trilogy since the original trilogy, something we have not gotten in a long time. And I do like the prequels, and I kind of like the sequels. If I didn't know anything about Star Wars, if I had like no investment into the franchise, and I was just talking about a good story, just a great story, well written, great characters, great character development, and just a moving story, Andor is really it. Andor season 1 and 2 and into Rogue One, it really is like peak Star Wars. And I know people use that phrase all the time, but I'm not kidding. All right, so we're gonna get into the spoilers right now, because that is all that I could say without actually officially spoiling it. So this is going to be your official spoiler warning. I'm going to talk a bit about the episodes, but I don't want to take too much time, so we're going to get into it. Also, I got on my Empire Strikes Back hoodie for this one, just because I wanted to wear something Star Warsy, and you know, this was that. I think this is the only like original trilogy thing that I have. I'm gonna get into it with the spoilers starting now. Usually when I do a review for TV shows on First and Finals, I like to talk a little bit about each episode, but instead of that, I'm going to talk a little bit about, because the episodes were released 3 at a time, so I'm going to talk a little bit about each trilogy of episodes, for lack of a better word, just to get through it a bit faster. The funny thing too, It has been so long since Andor season 1. I forgot that we got so many episodes of Andor season 1. And I think I didn't watch it until after all or most of the episodes were out. So I don't remember if they were dropping week by week or if they were dropping 3 at a time like season 2 is. I have no idea. But I think that dropping 3 at a time was really good. It's not what Disney Plus is used to. It's not what they're accustomed to. Usually they might drop a couple the first week and then go week to week with one episode at a time after that. But I think that 3 episodes at a time really worked for this series, especially considering it's a bit longer than most Disney Plus series are. Usually we only get 6 at the least, 8 at the most for a lot of Disney Plus series. I love that we got 12 and that we really got to sit in this, but I didn't even expect 12. Like, I forgot that we got 12 episodes of season 1. When we got to episode 9 and the end of it, I thought that was it. I thought we were done. And then I was just so happy to see that there were more episodes left. We're going to get into it right now with my spoiler thoughts of the show, starting with episodes 1 to 3. So these episodes had a lot to do because they had to reestablish all of the characters, the stories, kind of a where are they now, where have they been type of thing. And they did a really good job establishing all of that. It reminded you quickly of just how many characters there are and how many stories there are. Obviously, there was like Cassian and there was Bix, and you know, the characters we expect, but then there was also Luthen and Clea, and there was Mon Mothma and Vel, and there was like the Empire characters like Deidre, and there was Cyril, and there was also like Krennic and a whole bunch of other characters that we hadn't seen for so long, and so they had to reestablish where they are and where they're going in this. And I thought they did a really good job. My favorite obviously was Cassian's part of the story in the first 3 episodes, that he was already on like an undercover mission in the Empire, and his goal was to steal a TIE interceptor. It was very like high octane. It was very interesting to see a mission so close and so like boots on the ground. And then also it just kind of went bad, and we got to see like a whole bunch of what's the risk of doing something like this. Obviously there's a huge amount of risk in going undercover in the Empire and trying to steal something and get out, but you never think about the fact that then you have to move around the galaxy with something you stole from the Empire and try to convince people that you're not an Empire pilot. And so that was a really interesting story for Cassian, and a great way to start to show that he's still doing his part in the war. He's still doing what Luthen is asking of him, and he's willing to go pretty far in order to get it done. In addition to Cassian's story, there was also the B story, which I would say that Mon Mothma's story is definitely a B story here, where she's dealing with more of the political aspects as a senator, and she's got to deal with this wedding and the politics of her planet, while also dealing with the globe, with the galaxial, is that a word? With dealing with the politics of the galaxy overall, and how the new Empire rising up is starting to really mess with that. The Mon Mothma story I was not as interested in, but I thought it was a fun additional story to kind of get our bearings and figure out where we're going to go with this season. And then there was also the other B story, or C story I guess in this, is the Bix, the droids, all the other Ferric survivors that are waiting for Cassian, and what they're doing and how they're trying to live undercover, low-key. They're always on the move, always on the run, and trying to stay away from getting detected by the Empire. That was really interesting. A bit more interesting than what Mon Mothma had going on, so I really enjoyed all of these different stories playing out at the same time, and all of them having their own stakes and their own tensions kind of all interplaying. And all these stories do come together throughout the season, so I liked seeing them all. This is like as separate as they were going to be, and I like seeing them all slowly move towards each other. And then there's also the plot of Gorman that was eventually going to be the Death Star arc, and how that was slowly and steadily building up. The first 3 episodes I thought were really good. I thought they did a good job just reintroducing everybody in and basically setting up where we were going to go throughout the season. Episodes 4 through 6 started off pretty slow. This is honestly the part of the season where I was like, I don't know if they're going to, keep that same energy, if they're going to capture that same magic from the first season, because here it did start to really spread out, and we started to really go through all these different arcs, and we had no idea how they were all going to come together. I like to say that they had a lot of plates spinning in the air, and at this point I didn't know if they were going to be able to get them all down safely without them coming crashing down. I think that 4 through 6 kind of ended on a pretty high note, because we started to really deal with what the Gorman plot was, the boots on the ground. We got to see the character Cinta come back from season 1, Unfortunately, it was not for very long. I was so happy to see Cinta back, and then the way that not even just the way that they killed her off, but the speed at which they killed her off hit me so hard. But I get that was the point of it, right? You were supposed to have a character that you kind of fell in love with, and then you lose them so fast, and you realize it hurts, and you realize we're really in a war. And even though it's not the peak of the war that we would see in the later Star Wars movies, it still is a war, and there still are going to be casualties. But I did like the Gorman heist that they had going on, and I like this like underground insurgency that was building up that would soon become like an actual full-fledged resistance or rebellion. But it starts off at just kind of people trying to defend their home and trying to stand up for themselves, and I thought that was really good. Episodes 7 to 9, this is where the stuff really gets going. This is where the action really starts to ramp up. Specifically for the Gorman characters, and on Gorman is like the center point of all of this turmoil and action and tragedy. It really starts to pick up in episodes 7 through 9. The tension is building really fast, and we get to see what a real boots on the ground rebellion resistance looks like. Not like a rebel army, not that far-fetched yet, just people trying to rebel and trying to resist what the Empire has for them. And the couple episodes that we spent on Gorman are really good, and they handle this really well. And it starts off as just, like I said, people trying to defend their homes, and I liked how fast it gets messy. You know, you send a few stormtroopers out there to try to control the people. The people start to respond to the military presence. The military presence starts to respond to the people, and the next thing you know, it's an all-out bloodbath. There are people, everyone has blasters, there's people dying left and right. And all of this just going to show how this galactic civil war is going to squeeze out for a lot of different planets. And Gorman is kind of like a ground zero in this episode. Also, we get like Cassian is back on Gorman. I didn't mention, but he does some undercover like reconnaissance stuff on Gorman. Very low key, very spy, James Bond-esque. But now in this one, he's back on Gorman for another mission, and that's to try to assassinate Dedra. So a lot of the action is just popping off in these few episodes for our main characters, and it gets pretty bad. But I did like watching. This is like the highlight of the season for me, is the entire Gorman arc and how it all goes really bad really fast. And then the aftermath of Gorman is what the rest of the season is kind of hinged on, because after what happens in Gorman, that encourages Mon Mothma to actually speak up against the Empire in the Senate, and because of what she does and speaks up in the Senate, then Cassian has to get her and extract her to Yavin. So this is how it kind of directly relates into the original trilogy, because Mon Mothma is a character that we see in the original trilogy. She's on Yavin. She is one of the like leaders of the Rebel Army, and this is her like origin story. This is her really coming into her own. She was established in season 1, and she had her own dealings. She was a bit undercover. She was like financing the resistance in a low-key way. But this is her really becoming a leader of the Rebel Army by taking a stand, a very public stand against the Empire, which was really good. I think just as important as like seeing Gorman and that sort of dogfight that happens on Gorman, where people are then killed in the streets for trying to rebel and resist the Empire, what Mon Mothma did in the Senate, I think, is just as important. And like publicly speaking out against the regime of the Empire is something you don't really see, but it is a necessary step to get to what happens in the original trilogy and establishing the Rebel Army. Another important part in these episodes is Bix leaving. Now, this part, it definitely hurt. It definitely was very emotional, specifically for Cassian, that almost everything he was doing in this first season, second season, it's almost all for Bix, right? And it's like to keep her safe, but also to have a better world for her to live in. Her leaving was a really like emotional, like gut punch of a moment, but at the same time, I felt a huge amount of relief when Bix left, because we know she's not in Rogue One. So the entire time seeing those two characters, Cassian and Bix, and seeing how close they're getting and closer, and how dependent they are on each other, I was really worried that she might have gotten killed off in Andor season 2, and that's why we never saw her in Rogue One, or she's never even really mentioned. But I'm actually happy that she just kind of left for a clean break, and she left specifically to kind of give Cassian more motivation to stick with the Rebel Army and to be that captain. And without that, we probably wouldn't have got his involvement in Rogue One. So I was relieved at that point. And when we get to the end, I'll talk about that when we get there. But I'm even more relieved that she got out when she did. Oh, and also, episode 9 ends with K2SO formally entering the story, which I thought was another really good Easter egg. This is why I kind of thought that this would be the end of the show when they introduced K2SO, and then it kind of goes off from there. Because I felt like that was a pretty good lead into Rogue One, but there were a couple more story beats that had to happen in the final 3 episodes. But it was great to see K2SO. Honestly, the Gorman arc and that little fight that went down in Gorman made me scared of the security droids. Like, really seriously, the way that they were handling people. And it, like, there are a lot of droids out there, and there are droids with guns, and there are droids with rockets, and then there is, like, in some cases, droids with the, like, staffs, and who knows, like, a droid could do whatever. A droid could hold a lightsaber if you wanted it to. But for some reason, a droid with no weapons that is pure brute force is just even more terrifying. In Gorman, the security droids were just picking people up and throwing them in the air and letting them land on the ground, or they were just like running them over, tackling them, stepping on, like, it was really bad. And it gave me a fear of security droids, and K2SO is the only thing that can kind of help calm down my fear. But then there's also a bit of a callback to Andor season 1, where that security droid that kind of had that, like, excessive use of force and threw Andor in jail. That was a bit of a callback. So I'm sure there was a bit of distrust between Cassian and droids, and specifically security droids, and K2SO is kind of the person to come in and calm down those anxieties for me and for Cassian. But then we get into the final 3 episodes, 10 through 12. If you thought that, you know, the action couldn't ramp up anymore, it does. It does, and it starts off with Luthen and Dedra going mano-a-mano, going blow for blow. And Luthen's character throughout this story is a bit of a, like, gray area, you know. He's doing bad things, but he hopes it's ultimately for a good reason. He's lying about things. He doesn't know who to trust all the time. He doesn't always trust Cassian and our other characters that we have come to trust. So Luthen was always a bit of a gray area, but I think this episode kind of showed you that Luthen is really willing to do whatever it takes to keep the rebellion going, and that even amounts to him taking his own life to avoid giving up any secrets to the Empire. I thought that was just an extreme, that was a really hard scene to get through, but it was very vital to the character of Luthen and his character development, that throughout these seasons he's done so much for this rebellion, he's done so much to kind of keep the Empire at bay, that he was even willing to do whatever it takes, trying to keep his people safe in the end. And I thought that was a really good step, but it doesn't even really go the way he intended, because even though he almost takes his own life to save his people and to keep the Empire from getting hands on the information, Dedra attempts to keep him alive and put him in, like, a hospital in some sort of iron lung type of thing, and it's up to Kleya to do one more really important undercover mission, and to basically take him off life support so that they don't get access to any of his secrets. This was simultaneously cut with this B story of Kleya and Luthen's origin and how they came to know each other, and how Luthen raised her up. I mean, there was always the idea that she was his assistant, but there was the idea that she was like a daughter. And we see that she basically is his adopted daughter. We get how they came to be and how they really, like, have been doing this undercover sort of secret agent, double agent type of stuff since they were both very, very young. This was a really good episode. This was like that one more important final mission for the characters on Coruscant, while the rest of our characters are already on Yavin and have kind of gotten away from the dangers of the Empire. Kleya and Luthen were still pretty much in the middle of all of that turmoil. So at the same time that all of this is happening, they also are just getting the information of what the Empire is doing with the Kyber, what their plans are with Gorman and with Jedha, and what the Death Star is and what it means. Obviously, that's a major plot point going into Rogue One and then going into the original trilogy. And all of this is happening at the same time that, you know, Luthen is trying to destroy the evidence and trying to get Kleya off the planet and trying to reach out to the rebels on Yavin through Cassian and get all this information to them. Extremely vital information. There would be no winning the war without this information. So from then on, after Kleya, you know, succeeds in her mission to take Luthen off of life support, Then she has to get the information out to the rebels through Cassian, and Cassian comes through and tries to get her off of the planet and take her to Yavin. I just loved about this show is how it's like it's Star Wars. It's about war, and we always see war from these really big battles, these epic, huge battles like on Geonosis, and these really big battles in the different, like the Clone Wars battles and the space battles that take place. And I loved how this one was really like boots on the ground, very personal missions, one person getting in and getting information, one person stealing something important, a small crew doing a heist. Like, I loved how this was the espionage of the war. This was the very small missions that led up to those big battles, and they were even more interesting to watch than those really like massive battles where you don't know what's going on, you don't know all of the characters that are out there dying, minute to minute. This was a very personal take on the war, and that's, I think, what makes it very successful. And it was always like one more mission. Cassian steals the TIE interceptor, and then he's like, all right, I'm done. And it's like, wait, we need you for one more mission. Go to Gorman and do some undercover work. All right, I'm done that. That's it. He's like, no, we need you to go back to Gorman and assassinate Dedra. Okay, but then after that, I'm done. No, wait, we need you to do this. And it was always that one more mission that kept him moving forward and kept the plot moving forward, and made for an overall really good season of TV. But I think after we get Clea, we successfully get Clea off of Coruscant, get her back to Yavin, something we could not have done without K2SO. Shout out to him, the real MVP who came through in the end. Then that's really it for the story, and the way it ends is kind of in a like... there's not a major, huge plot point. There's not a major like ending and finale moment. It is kind of just, this is all that we've done. This is all that we've lost, and we're not even close to being done. There's still more to be done. There's still one more mission. Every time you finish, there's always one more mission. And unfortunately, because we know what happens in Rogue One, that really was the last mission for Cassian, unfortunately. But in the end, we get this. It's not a post-credit scene, it's before the credits. But we realize that the reason Bix left is because she was pregnant. She was pregnant with Cassian's kid. She had this kid, and she went back to... I don't even remember the name of the planet, but it's kind of where they started off with, where the Ferric survivors were living, and they were like farming grain or something along those lines. That planet was where Bix went to hide out and raise the child. And unfortunately, I don't think Cassian will ever get a chance to see his child because he dies in Rogue One, and all of the Rogue One characters die to get that information to the rebels, information that they couldn't have destroyed the Death Star without. And it's really sad, but it is also really hopeful at the same time, because it gave the Rebel Alliance an actual chance, an actual fighting chance against the Death Star, against the Empire. And in the end, they do kind of win, until the sequels happen, and then they come out with another. Okay, we're not going to talk much about the sequels, but I think that is one of our problems with the sequels, is that it kind of undermined all of the things that they did during the Galactic Civil War to destroy the Empire and to take over. All of that was kind of like, okay, you thought you were done, you thought we won, but what if we remixed it? What if we doubled it and gave it to the next person? And that was a sequel trilogy. But not thinking about any of that in the sequel trilogy, just thinking about where where Andor started off in season 1, where it went to in season 2, and then where it ended in Rogue One. It is just a really, really good story altogether. Every little piece of what happened in this season and last season all kind of builds up to where we are. Every story arc kind of seems like it was necessary, and it wasn't just there to be there. Every little thing that the characters did, good or bad, it all kind of amalgamates to this, what this show is. And like I said in the beginning, all of these separate storylines for all of these separate characters all get closer and closer and closer and closer to each other until they're all together in one. They're together, they're standing together, standing side by side as the Resistance, as the rebels. And there are also like a bunch of characters I didn't even mention here, like Saw Gerrera is basically an important part of the story, and Dedra. And the way Dedra's arc ends is that she actually gets arrested by the Empire, and they think that she is a rebel spy, even though all she did the entire season 1 and 2 was try to do whatever the Empire said, regardless of how crazy it was. And then Cyril was always in between the Empire and the Resistance, and he had the Empire using him against the Resistance, and he had the Resistance using him against the Empire, and he never really knew the truth. And in the end, he ended up dying on Gorman. And he doesn't even know why. He doesn't even know what he died for. I think that all of these story arcs were so good, and they were so successful, and that's the reason why Andor Season 1, Season 2, and Rogue One, like I said, one of the best Star Wars trilogies that we have ever gotten since the originals. But that is going to be it for this one. That's my first and final thoughts on Andor Season 2. The too long didn't read, like I said, is that I didn't know if the show could come back and be as successful in its second season. But now that I've seen it, I can tell you that it is. It is as successful in its second season. I would watch a third season if I could, but we all know that the third season is called Rogue One, and we know how it ends. If somehow they can find a way to give us another story, I don't know. What's Cassian's kid doing when he grows up? I don't want them to cheapen it, though. So if they don't have another story to tell within this world, I don't mind them just leaving it off there. I'm really enjoying Star Wars media. I have been for a while now, but I'm really, really enjoying it. I remember when Season 1 came out, I made a tweet talking about how I think Star Wars media really hit its stride with Andor Season 1, with The Mandalorian, and then with like their animated shows like Tales of the Jedi. There's also Tales of the Empire and Tales of the Underworld, I think. I haven't seen that one, Tales of the Underworld, yet. One of their animated shows, so I'm gonna check that out. But there's also Star Wars Visions. Skeleton Crew is great, and if I thought they hit their stride then when Season 1 came out, they really, really are starting to hit their stride now with their shows, with their properties. I wish they could get another movie that's really good, like Rogue One, but you know, we'll wait and see. They're doing a Mandalorian movie. That's all I wanted to say about Andor Season 2 without, you know, being here for too long. But guys, let me know how you felt about Andor Season 2. If you enjoyed it like I did, then hit me with the 3-hit combo. And you just smash the like button like K2SO, spear the subscribe button like Darth Maul, and kick the notification bell like Ahsoka Tano. If you also enjoyed Andor Season 1, Season 2, or Rogue One. If you didn't enjoy it, let me know how you felt about it down in the comments below. What were your problems with it? What were your gripes with it? But to be completely honest, I say this all the time these days. Every time there's a new thing, I say it a lot more. Everything isn't made for everyone. If you don't like a show, doesn't mean the show is bad. It just means the show is not for you, and you don't have to watch it. You don't have to like it. Even if you're a fan of the original Star Wars trilogy, doesn't mean the prequels are for you. Doesn't mean the sequels are for you. Doesn't mean every show that comes out is for you. And that makes the things that are for you even more special, because you found your thing, and everything isn't for everyone. You don't have to make it work for you. You can just move on and enjoy the things that you like to enjoy. So that is going to be it for this one, you guys. I do have some more first and finals coming up for the rest of the year. There's Fantastic Four and Superman, both coming up in July, I believe. And then there is in June, at the end of June, there's Ironheart, the new Marvel series that is coming out. I've already recorded my first reaction, and I cannot wait to give you guys my final thoughts after that full show has come out. And then there's a bunch of other stuff coming out that we'll probably get first and finals for, and probably some other shows and or movies that I don't even know about yet that I would be excited to make first and final videos for. So let me know, what are some other movies, TV shows, and other that you guys want to see me do reviews and reactions for. And I will see you guys next time in another new one. Also, check out my last first and final video, which is for Thunderbolts, the last Marvel movie. And I also did one before that, which was for... Damn it, what the... Oh, it was for Captain America, Brave New World before that. So I've got my first and finals for both of those, and we got a lot more coming. That's going to be it for this one, you guys. So tell me how you feel. Tell me if you feel me, and I will see you next time in another new one. Peace out.
My favorite men's outfit.
It's a good one.
This is nice.
It's a really nice one. But I think, you know, he wanted people to pay more attention to the outfit.
Down to the shoes.
Yes, but he built this reveal brick by brick.
I built this shit. Me. Brick by brick.